to everyone gathered online and in the monastery. It's a good moment last night after the chanting and question and answers had finished, and Venerable Ajahn Anan came to the screen and saw all of you there, saying hello to each of you, or good night, and it was quite a nice scene. And afterwards he told me that all these people are very lucky to be able now to have the Dhamma come to their homes, to where they are. And he also said that, but all these people must have a lot of merit because they're choosing to join, to practice meditation, to listen to Dhamma in this way. And so shows that all of you do have this merit and interest and goodness to join. And maybe many of you, it's not your first time joining a retreat. I see also some people familiar on the screen in front of me. And so today they said I'd be giving a teaching or maybe a sharing of some Dhamma, and especially close to the time of Venerable Ajahn Anand's birthday. I tend to recollect some of the stories or some of the times that I'd been fortunate enough to have here in Wat Mapjan, where I spent about 10 years here, and also just coming back regularly. It's always very sort of a joyous feeling to come back here. And now having these retreats then, I guess have a chance to say hello to all of you. Having a teacher like this is often the start of our practice. Once we have a good teacher, one who we have faith and confidence in, then we listen to their Dhamma. Just like all of you coming to listen to Venerable Ajahn Anand's Dhamma. This gives us this yoniso manisakara, this wise consideration, or we look at things in a different way according to the ways they teach us. This is, if people ask what way does Ajahn Anan teach, I think he teaches many different ways, but they're all to help us to bring up mindfulness and wisdom. And so this is the benefit of listening to Dhamma. We reflect on things in a certain way. We bring up mindfulness and wisdom, and then we have more sense restraint, it says. From there we have, it reduces any unskillfulness in our body, speech and mind, and this reduces the hindrances. These hindrances are what obstructs our samadhi, or clear states of mind, and our wisdom. And the benefit of reducing the hindrances is that we reduce our ignorance and delusion, avijja and moha. So this is what we're trying to do in the practice. We're not trying to, you could say, gain or see anything, but we're just trying to maybe understand more clearly into this experience of the present moment that we have. So this is something that we're learning more about. We could say that we're learning more about dukkha, about suffering. We say that only one who's been fully enlightened can really understand about dukkha. So all of us are still learning about dukkha, its causes, its cessation, the way of practice for us to attain that. And this Zoom meetings that we have regularly, they've started this 10 years ago, and from there is only just I think just a few, no more than 2 or 3 centres then. But there were those that joined every week, every Friday. That's how we started. And that's from the kindness of Venerable Ajahn Anan to use these types of technology ever since the beginning, because he could see the benefit of it. And so there was one woman who had been joining very regularly, and she had listened to Venerable Ajahn Anan give many teachings or regular teachings on emptiness, the emptiness of form, the emptiness of the body, the aggregates, the mind. Listening to this often, she was still confused and could not understand into what emptiness really meant. But as she kept listening and listening, she could tell that what she was really holding on to was a lot of past memories and thoughts that she couldn't let go of. And so you could say that this is what was causing her suffering. But as she contemplated it, she asked herself, what is, or who is it, that is regretting these things? Who is it that is thinking all these memories? And from there, she couldn't get an answer until she could see more clearly into it, that it was emptiness, that it was not a self. And so she was able to listen to the next Dhamma talk, she said, and gain some clarity and peace from that understanding of, oh, that's emptiness, the emptiness of that self that really isn't there, that we make and think that it is something that is true and real. And she said, yeah, she gained a lot of joy and rapture from that and could understand that teaching. And so you could say that the teaching maybe is very simple, but she could understand it maybe after a long time. And so this is why we need to come back often and we keep listening to the Dhamma. Maybe it is a lot of similar topics that we hear, but we're trying to learn from our experience, or more that it's pointing at us to learn from our experience, to understand more about it. And to gain just that type of understanding just once would make it all worth it. As in, that's what we're trying to go towards. And so this is, often hear some of these stories of people that have gained benefit from this type of Dhamma talks and Zoom meetings that we've been having regularly. And it shows that, we do have, or we have received a lot of kindness from Venerable Ajahn Anan, from the Sangha here, who helped to sacrifice, to set all this up. Kindness from the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. And so there's a lot of supports that we have. And for myself, I reflected on that I actually had these supports even before I really knew about it, even before I was really interested in Buddhism or in Dhamma or ordaining or anything like that. When I was back in my lay life, I wasn't that interested until much later on, much past high school, even university. But recently on my last trip to Thailand here, Venerable Ajahn Anan, he asked a few monks about that he was considering a trip overseas, and he said, do you think I should go? What do you think? What's the benefits of me going on this trip overseas that would give teachings and meet some lay people? And so one of the other monks, he said, then the people over there will be very happy that you've come, and they'll receive your kindness, and they can get some Dhamma, and it have a lot of benefit then. And so then he asked myself, what do you think? What benefits would there be? And so I paused for a little while, and then I thought about it and said that, actually for myself, if Venerable Ajahn Anan, he didn't make a trip to Australia, to Sydney, and meet with Tan Chokun Mahasamai, who was the one who advised me to go stay at, or to go ordain here in Wat Mapchan with Venerable Ajahn Anan, then I may never have come, or I may never have known about this place. And so that type of kindness that was there from before. And so when I answered like this, then Venerable Ajahn Anan just paused for a little while, and then he told the next person coming in that, oh, all right, I better go to this trip because maybe I can get another Ajahn Larry to ordain. And so, even though I guess not really saying it to praise myself or anything like that, but I did feel quite praised, you could say. But just having that kindness from the teachers, and we can recollect all these things that we've received in our life. We've had so many supports. We didn't just get here alone, and it's not like forcing us to be grateful, but just when we recollect and consider all our good fortune that we have, then it naturally brings up gratitude. And so it can reflect on the teacher's kindness, like I said, the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, all the way, the unbroken lineage to the Buddha, from Venerable Ajahn Anan, Venerable Ajahn Chah, Venerable Ajahn Mun, all the way to the direct disciples of the Buddha and the Buddha himself, who had sacrificed so much to build his paramitas in order to find the path to free oneself from dukkha. And so we can reflect on just things here, having this sort of technology here, being grateful for that, or even all these people that had sacrificed to help set up this monastery here, right from the beginning. And Ajahn Anan said he'd been here in his 9th vasa, and so, 35 years ago, etc., then, a lot has been sacrificed in order to have a place like this. And we may have come much later, but we can still appreciate all these good things that we have going for us. And this brings up can bring up a lot of inspiration in our practice, that we should really use these things to practice with, use all these supports. And so this practice of ours, a lot of it is trying to bring brightness, bring more understanding and clarity into our mind. Sometimes people are thinking that they need to do this and do that, and maybe have to get samadhi, have to attain to this thing. But really we're trying to, you could say, just understand ourselves more, understand our body and mind more, or bring more light to just our present moment experience. And this means that we see things wrongly, we don't see it yet clearly, but the more brightness or the more closer that we see it, then the more understanding we should gain from it. And then from there, then things naturally are let go of, or attachments are naturally let go of. For myself, like I said, I wasn't that interested when I wanted to ordain. Before I wanted to ordain. And so, how did I come here? Sometimes I think, maybe it's because luckily had some good karma, but I'd been kind of practicing, meditating regularly, and it was just maybe one day that I got a bit of wisdom and understanding more clearly into the nature of things as being impermanent. And maybe before that, I saw things in one way, so having a lot of maybe sensual pleasures, or at least a lot of things that people in this world are going for, like an apartment, a car, job, girlfriend, all these things I had at that point in my life. I felt like everything was quite, doing quite well, you could say, as in I had everything I really thought, but contemplating this impermanence, or seeing just more clearly into these things that I had and seeing it as being something that wouldn't last, that one would have to be eventually parted from it, that death must come for sure. And this brought up a more clarity. Like we tend to only look at things one way, but not look at it, see the drawbacks of those things. Like recently I took a trip to New Zealand, and there's all these beautiful sites that everyone around the world is traveling so far to see. And just the amount of maybe pleasure coming from that sight of being able to see it, but having had to travel 9 hours flight or a 4-hour drive, and then going up to this mountain, taking a few pictures, and then coming back, bringing the body back all the way to back home like that. And if we only look at the positive side, then we see that it's worth it, But if we look at the other side, then maybe we start to gain a bit of dispassion, or see things a bit more clearly, and we don't then maybe can let go more of our maybe desire towards it. And so just seeing into things more clearly, then we can overcome this first hindrance of sensual desire, sensual pleasure, or the desire for anything, just having this liking, seeing more clearly into it. We look at the other side, and especially if we have a lot of attachment and clinging, then we need to look at the opposite side of it. And so we're taught often to reflect on the unattractive side of things. And if it's the body that we're attached to and that we have sensual delight towards, then we have to reflect on the opposite side of it. And Venerable Ajahn Larry's given many teachings on different reflections we can use to see the unattractive, the asubha side of the body. Just seeing the 5 outer parts is something that we have to see more clearly. Like hearing when Venerable Ajahn Chah would have monks who came to ordain, and he would teach them these 5 outer body parts to contemplate on: the head hairs, the body hairs, the nails, teeth, skin, and just say that you think you know them, but you haven't yet seen clearly into them. And so just pointing at us to reflect on these things. Are they really what we think? Are we only looking at the one side of it? And we try to broaden up and look at things much more closer, and we gain more clearer understanding, and we can overcome any sensual desire, and that can bring clarity and even wisdom into the mind. And so the second hindrance of ill will, this one has such a broad spectrum, we could say, just any small irritation, all the way to anger and hatred. So it's something that we need to also look closely. We'll notice that if we tend to only look at one side of things, then we may get upset and irritated. For example, looking at someone's faults, then we obviously are going to think badly of them. There was once here when I remember we were looking for something, this kind of like a CD case or something, and we needed to, or Venerable Ajahn Anan had us look for it because we had to use it for, maybe we were going on a trip out of the country and needed it for some of the information, like leaflet or something that we were doing. And Venerable Ajahn Anan described exactly what this thing looked like. he said, look, was this certain color, was this certain shape? And he told us to go look for it, because all the things had been moved to the library. And so I really wanted to find this thing, so I went there, spent the whole day looking for this one CD cover, looking this color, this shape, and I spent the whole day and couldn't find this thing. And then I went back and said, it's definitely not there. And then the Ajahn Anan sent another monk to go have a look, and this was a more senior monk, and he went to have a look at this, and in not a long time he found it. Came back and said, here it is, and Ajahn Anan said, yeah, that's the one he was looking for. And then when I looked at this CD case, it was nothing like what Ajahn Anan had told me. It wasn't even this color, it wasn't even that shape. And the first thing I felt was a kind of irritation, as I really wanted to find it, and spent so long. And then I didn't say anything at first and kept holding on to this, you could say, being upset. And I told that other monk who had found it, I said, I would have found it if I knew it was like that, and had the wrong information. And so the monk listened to me, and he just said, this is the way it is. It's like this, pretty much. Ben yang ni eng. In Thai, that means, it's just like this. This is the way it is. And when I could contemplate that, then could let go, as in just to accept the reality of the situation, the present moment, experience of that, and understanding. And the irritation and anger could pass just like that. And maybe this is a reflection for us to notice this type of maybe irritation or ill will, even on a retreat like this. I don't know where you are in your rooms, in your house, etc. But I don't know, maybe we're very serious at this retreat, and maybe the people around us aren't so serious. Maybe they're making a lot of noise, and then we think that maybe it's just us that are very serious in this practice. Why they have to be like that? Can't they understand us more, or they're not really practicing? Or maybe irritation or some sort of ill will towards oneself. Maybe I should be better. I should be able to do better than this, or have to be more disciplined. I have to attain something. Why can't I get this peacefulness to come up? So all this is something that we have to look at, and maybe just accept more these states of mind that are arising. This is the way it is. These things come up. If we can accept that, then we can let that go. And if we are unable to let it go just by looking at it, then we need to develop a lot of metta, loving kindness, goodwill. Goodwill for ourselves, goodwill for the ones around us. And this is something like we take off the focus just of that one thing that the mind grabs onto, and we look at it more broader, look at the good aspects of it, the positive, look at the goodwill, and this can help our mind feel more at ease. The third hindrance of drowsiness and or sloth and torpor. This one, before when Venerable Ajahn Anan was leading the retreats in here, remember he would use different ways in order to get people to overcome any drowsiness, especially the time right after the meal tended to be a difficult one for people. You could tell it's a bit hot and people had eaten a full meal. And so he may have different ways of getting people to hold like a full cup of water. They'd have to hold this and try not to drop it while they're meditating. And maybe one or two of them would drop it over them and then wake themselves up. Or at other times he would use the, what do you call it, the bamboo strands that the monks use to throw the blessed water, or to throw the blessed water. And so we'd use that and tap that on his hand, and this would wake people up if they're, drowsing off, or they're tended to be nodding off. This sound, then think back to yourself and reflect if you have mindfulness or not at that time. And I think the other methods he would give is the methods of staying up all night, especially on a day like today, the Nesa Chika Sita practice. And this one you definitely have to use all sorts of methods in order to overcome that tiredness and drowsiness. Sometimes you couldn't just sit through it. You'd really have to get up, do chanting, recite, wash your face, walk around, look at something bright. All these methods that you may have read in the suttas, you'd have to use every one of them, except for maybe the lying down if you're very tired. But a lot of walking meditation. And I think Venerable Jacob had talked about his Nesa Chika experiences already about that. So, but it's good to be aware of that. This hindrance is one that people can get caught up in, and there is a sort of maybe even a pleasure in that. The mind's not thinking too much, and one gets caught up into just this sort of dull mind states, not letting not bringing up right states of mind, or so the fourth hindrance of restlessness and remorse. When the mind is just thinking a lot over and over, this one is one that you can get caught into, especially good people. They tend to want to only have good thoughts, and so any unwanted bad thoughts can cause a lot of suffering, and trying to push it away can bring it up more and more. There was once when I was attending on Venerable Ajahn Anan, and I think I was there by myself, and it was the morning, and we were going down for the alms round. And when you go for alms round, then you're carrying your bowl, and you're carrying Ajahn Anan's bowl, and also his robes, and your own robes, and your yam, and the monk's bag. And so carrying a lot of things, and you have to close the door, this and that, and go down, trying to do it mindfully. And there was once when I was rushing out, I remember, and I dropped his robe on the ground. And any of the monks here would know that that's a super bad thing to do. And as I dropped it, just a few kind of steps behind Ajahn Anan, I remember he turned around and he looked down at this robe, and he knew it was his. And then he looked at me, and then I looked back, and then he just turned off and walked into the car. And I just picked up the robe and quickly had to follow. And then in the car going down to the alms round, I remember it was just talking about just something just normal, as if nothing had happened at all. And I guess the first thing that really impressed me was that by looking at him then, I knew that he that teaching that he had given of, or he'd give often of, the mind is one thing, the mind objects, the Ramana, is another thing. They're not one thing, they're separate. This teaching can be hard to understand, but seeing that, I knew that that's what it meant. There's no sort of You know that object that you're experiencing for what it is. There's no sort of liking or disliking or attraction or aversion towards that. It's known for what it is. It's simply something that arises and ceases. And in that way, then nothing, you could say, or nothing would make you suffer because you understand everything. Just like Ajahn Chah would say, the world, the aramana is the world is the aramana. That is our world, is that experience that we have. And if we take that as ours, then we suffer over it. You want to get something, it doesn't turn out the way we like, then we suffer. We don't want to, we don't want it to that way, we get angry, we suffer. But to understand things as they are, then there's no suffering that can arise. And so that was, you could say, the first, maybe something that impressed me, as in, you could say it wasn't something psychic or anything like that. It's just something that you could say is the fruits of the practice that we're trying to go towards. Like I said, we're trying to learn more about dukkha. We're trying to learn about that cessation, or get to the cessation of dukkha, is from understanding things clearly, understanding our experiences more clearly. And so I guess after looking back on it, I can think of it like that. But if it was someone else who did that and I could share their story, I probably would have preferred that, because after that I remember having so much, you could say, turmoil at having done something so, so bad, and the mind was going over, replaying it over and over again, being upset at having done that. Obviously it wasn't intended, and couldn't really meditate. All you could think about was this of what had happened, and maybe having ill will towards yourself. And so then I remember later on then that Venerable Ajahn Anan, he gave the talk that these bad thoughts, there's something that come up as normal. If you don't want them, then that's vibhava tanha. That's wanting it not to be that way. But these things naturally arise. Your job is just to let it arises, and you just let it pass. And he asked someone who was sick, physically sick, who maybe they just recovered, and he asked them, you better now? And the man said, oh yeah, I'm doing better now. And he said, oh, you're sick because your immunity is low. And so the mind is the same. If your mindfulness and wisdom is low, then the defilements will come up. The mind will be covered over with defilements. And so he said, you have to bring up the kammatthana, Buddho, whatever meditation object that you're trying to develop, that is like you're having mindfulness in the present moment. That's what you need to develop. And so he said that, as you may have heard a lot, that teaching of Venerable Ajahn Chah's of when you're eating a fish, then you only eat the flesh. The bones you just throw away. They're no value, they're not worth anything. And so just having that reflection, being able to maybe even forgive yourself and to just move on from there, to let that go, was a practice or something to practice with. And so we have to notice ourselves as well then, whether we get caught up in states of restlessness. Maybe some people can sit and think of this and that, but that means the mindfulness is low. We have to bring it back to developing mindfulness, our meditation of the breath. And so if it is very difficult, then Ajahn Anan would have various ways for us to reflect, whether it's counting the breath, counting the breath at the 3 points, or he said if nothing else works, then you can reflect on death. Think that we going to die soon, death is certain, life is uncertain. So the 5th hindrance of doubt, skeptical doubt. This one, I don't really have my own story or anything about it, but I remember at least having attended on Venerable Ajahn Anan, there'd be many monks who'd come who have doubts, and they may come up to him, some may be even doubting about whether they should stay as a monk. I remember he'd have different ways, but if someone came, he may say, then just keep watching it. Just keep watching it. It will pass. And obviously that teaching for them maybe wasn't enough to, for them right at that moment to let that go, but more just having to endure maybe the states of mind that they were having. So he would say that Luang Por Thongrat, who's Venerable Ajahn Chah's teacher, would say that that's what the advice he would give. Just keep watching it, just keep watching it. As in whenever the defilements are at its strongest, just keep watching it. And so monks that would come then, maybe later on they might come back again and receive the same advice, or maybe later on then this feeling would pass away on its own if they could endure it enough. So I guess there are a few stories to share with you. I've seen that at least the time here, having the teacher giving you skillful methods to overcome different hindrances that you may be stuck on, always provided me a lot of benefit. And so sharing that with you. Hopefully there's some points of Dhamma that you can receive from that and bring to your own practice.
Thank you for the great Dharma talk. Can you see me? Oh no, okay. I'm at the back of the hall here. So you spoke very nicely about the 5 hindrances, and one that I don't see being brought up very often is hostility, feelings of hostility, like I'm stuck, I'm trapped. So we hear a lot about like metta or loving kindness for ill will and hatred, but what about like hostility? The sense of like I'm trapped inside of myself, or if like someone has, on the very extreme end, being maybe held captive, just as an example, or if someone has been held against their will, sort of feeling, like I'm stuck, I can't get out. How do you recommend we deal with this? Thank you. Thank you.
It's a good simile to have in relation to the hindrances. Each of the hindrances, the Buddha actually gave a simile for them. And the first one of sensuality or sensual pleasures is of being in jail. Being in debt. You're sort of loaned out your happiness, you always have to pay it back and search for it, etc. The hindrance of ill will is, if I remember correctly, it should be sickness. That type of sickness is you can't really enjoy anything. Maybe once you're fixated on that thing, you could say that then you're trapped by it. If you're trapped by sickness, you're trapped by ill will. So the ways that you just mentioned are the ways to overcome that. developing metta, loving kindness, or maybe just having to watch it more. Maybe these states, once we develop the sort of samadhi, or maybe if you focus only on that object, then the same thoughts and patterns and moods can come up from that. But maybe if you're aware more of that and then bringing it back to metta, to the breath, and if you can just get some, maybe a bit of rapture or a bit of the mind settling down, then it can overcome that feeling of being trapped. Yeah, that ill will can be a very wide spectrum of maybe from just very subtle types of aversion all the way to very strong states of hostility. One being trapped in jail is like drowsiness and sloth and torpor. That's the one the Buddha uses for being in jail. Maybe that's like when you fall asleep and you're meditating, everything passes, you've got no idea. Kind of like in jail, then everything passes around you, you have no idea what's going on outside. We just keep practicing. The fourth one. I think the fourth one of restlessness, remorse, is like being a slave, being enslaved. Maybe you're enslaved to your thoughts, to your regrets, to your memories. And then the fifth one is, I think you're going somewhere where it's very dangerous and maybe bandits can attack you. So you have a lot of worry or fear there. So you don't feel safe. Not really sure what's what.
Here's the question. I do see that practicing as a householder at home is really tough, but it's doable. My family members, husband and daughters, are aware about my desire to participate in this retreat. Am I being selfish for being insistent to practice?
You're anumodana for having this desire, this intention to practice. Hopefully if they see the benefits of you practicing, then they can see the benefits of you spending time in this way. You didn't say you want to ordain, you're still responsible, doing your responsibilities to your family, but for these few days you want to develop yourself, you want to practice meditation, and then if they can understand your intentions, then they should rejoice at your actions, your efforts. I don't see why it would be a bad thing. But I guess you make sure you're not giving up sort of certain responsibilities that you should be doing. Like I was thinking that on this retreat, before it used to be just an in-person retreat. There was no online retreat then. And so I remember that those times that Venerable Ajahn Anan would organize these retreats, it wouldn't be in the time where there'll be the least people in the monastery. It'd be the time when there'd be the most people in the monastery. As in, like, one was around Katina time. And Katina is the biggest event in this whole monastery for the year. And Ajahn Anan, he didn't look like he saw it as any problem that there'd be, 1,000 people coming to the monastery. And in the same way, he had a specific time where people coming for the retreat would do chores. And so they'd have a morning chores, helping out in the kitchen, to prepare the food and things like that. But also in the afternoon, again, there'd be another chore time. And I remember that he would he'd give me a list, or make me make this list of what chore for the whole group to do on that day. And so I'd go down and tell them, okay, today you're cleaning all the fly screens of this whole dormitory, taking them all off, wash them down, scrub them, put them back like this. And it's something that, not one person could do. Everyone had to do it together. And so I think that he had the idea that doing things in harmony doesn't lead to drawbacks or lead you to lose out on anything, but can lead to a lot of benefit and goodness. And maybe you're practicing mindfulness in a different way. When you're meeting with other people, maybe you have to practice in a different way to not, find faults and not see the bad side. And so maybe at home as well, you have your own specific time where you do some sort of chores, just some sort of thing that maybe, whether it's cleaning or it's something, then you do that mindfully as if you were in the monastery. Because the monastery life isn't such a life like a full-on meditation retreat. There's a lot more fluidity to it. Maybe unexpected things are happening at different times, and you have to practice with it in your own way, with your own mindfulness and wisdom. So I think that Venerable Ajahn Anan always liked the way of having a retreat, which was quite fluid, or more like a monastic sort of life or practice, rather than retreat of, I just do this and I'm not doing anything else, don't worry about any responsibilities, and everything has to be quiet and everything. It's, sometimes those things may bring up wisdom for you, and so you can maybe reflect on it in that way. You have a certain time where you do go out and help your wife or daughter at something. There's no reason why you can't do that. And then maybe you should try to catch the mind if it does get caught up into some sort of aversion or irritation or wanting things to be different than the way it is.